You're listening to the Angry Marks Podcast Network.
And welcome everybody to another episode of Glove Up or Shut Up right here on AngryMarks.com. My name is Peter H. I'm joined once again by my co-host from Omaha, Nebraska, Stevie J.
Good evening, Peter, and good evening to all of our listeners to Glove Up or Shut Up. Thank you for your support. Thank you for your patronage. We're glad you're here to hear us talk about everything going on in the world of mixed martial arts.
Absolutely. We've got UFC 212 to review. We're going to preview this weekend's UFC Fight Night. And we got lots of news to get to, including someone being added to the class of 2017 UFC Hall of Fame.
Yes, a Pride legend, a New Japan Pro Wrestling legend, and somebody that maybe UFC viewers aren't too familiar with, but they'll get to know him as soon as he goes in.
Absolutely. But we should start with what happened this past weekend. UFC 212, Jose Aldo versus Max Holloway for the title in the featherweight division. And this one did not go to the judges.
So before we get to the result, I want to get your opinion. Did Jose Aldo win the first two rounds?
No.
Okay.
I think it was split going into the third.
So you had it one apiece going into the third, because some people I know had it 2-0. The argument there would be that Jose Aldo was controlling the fight better, but that Max Holloway was landing harder shots.
Yeah, he was definitely getting hurt. You can say after the fight, of course, you can break it down whatever way you want to look at it, but in my opinion, I had this, I think it was the second? I think it was the second where I gave Holloway the second, I gave Aldo the first. Like, you're right. Aldo in that first round, he was a better fighter, but, Holloway got a couple of good shots in. The second round, it was the same, but it seemed like the momentum was starting to swing towards Holloway. And even with the new judging criteria, I still gave Holloway the second.
So that leads me to my second question before we discuss the result.
Mm-hmm.
Do you feel that Jose Aldo was a slower fighter in this fight?
Jesus. Yes and no.
Once again, the argument that I've read and heard from other people who watched this fight was that he wasn't as fast as he was against Frankie Edgar.
True. That was a faster Aldo. But when you're in the cage against Holloway, it was, some of those shots were pretty crisp.
And that does lead us to the conclusion of the fight in the third round, when he caught Jose Aldo almost flat-footed with a combo, and you could see Jose, which you don't see this happen to him very often, other than Conor McGregor when he caught him with that one perfect shot. You could see Jose Aldo frozen, and you could see that the lights were flickering on and off. And he started backpedaling, which is another thing you never see Jose Aldo do in a fight. And Max Holloway knew he had him at that moment, and he just unleashed fury on him coming forward with shots.
So when the fight was over, Aldo was kind of sitting up, and the referee and the trainers, they were all trying to, sit him up and make sure he's okay. And Aldo had this look on his face.
Insisting that he wasn't stopped, that it was a bad stoppage. Yeah.
No, he was done. The referee made the right call. I have no issue with that.
In fact,
the look on Aldo.
Sorry to interrupt, but his coach, Andre Pedernera, said he may think that the fight shouldn't have been stopped, but if he sits down and watches this fight with me, he'll know the referee made the right decision. That's his own coach saying that.
So the look on Aldo's face, it was a mix between, did anybody get the number of that truck, and why is the fight over?
Mm-hmm. He was in utter disbelief that in Brazil, in a fight to unify the titles, he just lost to Max Holloway. It was like that old scene. I know I'm dating myself with this, but you and I have both grown up with the movie The Princess Bride. It's like that old scene where he says, "Inconceivable!" That was the look on Jose Aldo's face, was there was no way he could believe this was happening to him in Brazil.
Or inconceivable, as some people say now.
Yeah, inconceivable, yes.
If you don't go into a fight thinking, especially in UFC, if you don't go into the fight thinking you're going to win, then you should not be a fighter.
Of course, you have to have an air of confidence. In fact, you might even call it swagger. You have to have that belief going in, a chip on your shoulder, whatever you want to say, that you're a winner, you're a tough man, and you can handle anything because you're going to come out the winner in the end. It's that whole process of visualizing the result you want in your head to make it come to reality. It's an important thing for athletes to do.
And, in the world of mixed martial arts and the way the pay structure is and the way, the sponsorship is different than what it was before, this guy who you're fighting, he is literally taking food off your table.
Mm-hmm.
Like, if they want to break it down to the basics of it, the winner gets the bigger paycheck.
Yeah. You win, you get a real significant increase in your pay, not just in your potential fight bonus, but in your Reebok payout and everything else that goes along with that. There's a clear delineation now, which is why a lot of guys choose to leave UFC and go to other organizations, because they can get extra money from their sponsors that UFC fighters can't.
Absolutely. And, Max Holloway here, to steal a line from Gorilla Monsoon, he didn't get paid by the hour.
No. When he went for the kill in the third round, he was thinking, I'm not giving Jose Aldo the chance to get back in this fight. I'm not letting it go the late rounds. I'm hurting him with my hands. I know I was hurting him with my hands in the second round, and he just started backpedaling for me in the third. I'm going in there full bore, and I'm going to prove that I'm not only the best featherweight on the planet, I'm the best featherweight in this cage right now.
So, when it comes to this fight, I have a question for you, Stevie. Do you think if Holloway eased up, do you think Aldo could have come back and won this fight?
Do I think he could have come back? Boy, that's tough, because like you said, in that second round, I think the momentum was starting to swing the other way, but we've seen that happen before in title fights where a guy suddenly seems like all the momentum's going in his direction, and then he gets to the fourth and fifth round, and suddenly something bad happens, and he loses the fight. We saw it happen to Rory McDonald in the fight with Robbie Lawler, where we thought he was winning right up until the point he got knocked out in the fifth round. So I wouldn't say no chance, but what I would say is that something I didn't expect to happen happened on this night, where a guy that I thought was really good, but wasn't necessarily better than Jose Aldo, not only proved what I already knew, which was that he was really good, but proved that he is, in fact, better than Jose Aldo. So to say that Jose Aldo would have come back in that fight is debatable.
All right, so let's move on to the co-main event in the women's strawweight division between Claudia and Carolina.
Before we do, just officially for the record, it was 4 minutes and 13 seconds of the third round by TKO, because neither one of us had actually said those words yet.
Right. Claudia and Carolina. Claudia wins with a rear naked choke. And speaking of it not getting paid by the hour, this one went 3 minutes and 3 seconds.
Now, this one did not surprise me at all. Unlike the title fight where I really thought Jose Aldo was going to find a way to retain because I thought he was just absolutely the best man on the planet in the featherweight division, I really am not surprised at all that Claudia Gadelha is that much further ahead of Karolina Kowalkiewicz. And not that Kowalkiewicz isn't good, and not that Kowalkiewicz isn't tough, but there's such a clear demarcation in the strawweight division that it goes like this. Joanna is better than everyone, and Gadelha is better than everyone else. That's how it works.
So it's 1 and 1A, basically.
Yeah. And then there's people circling around just underneath them, like Rose Namajunas, that are really damn good, but not better than either of them.
Although, Thug Rose, you wanna, put her in a title fight or number one contender? I mean, she is right up there. I mean, she is just, I would not want to stand between her and a title shot, that's for sure.
You put her in a fight with Kowalkiewicz, and if she wins, you could probably get a title shot.
Yeah, that's a pay-per-view fight right there.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I hate to transition to this because this fight drove me batshit crazy.
Oh, well, I
Pardon
wanted
my
your
French.
opinion of the rear naked choke before we moved on. How good did you think it was?
Oh, she wasn't getting out.
Yeah, no chance.
No, it's like, yeah, I'm screwed, and I got 2 minutes left. No, I'm not getting out.
To me, it was like the bad old days when Husmar Palhares would put on a leg lock and not let it go. It was like, you ain't getting out of that.
No, it's a vice grip. You're done.
Mm-hmm.
Now, Vitor Belfort and the great Mark Hart. The judges got it wrong, in my opinion. I'm not sure how you stand on this one, boss.
I picked Nate to win it. I think Vitor might have gotten a hometown decision.
Oh, yes, he did. 29-28 on my card for Nate. But hometown judges, quote unquote, his last fight. I don't know about this. When they went to the judges, I was like, crap.
Mm-hmm.
Like, what do you do? I mean, Nate had to knock him out to get this victory here.
Especially in Brazil. You don't beat Vitor Belfort in Brazil by scoring more points than him. You have to either choke him out or knock him out.
And when the judges' scorecards were read and they said by winner by split decision, as soon as they started saying...
No, they didn't say
Vitor,
split. It was unanimous.
Oh, unanimous, sorry. Yeah, unanimous decision. Nate just was disgusted. I think he just walked out of the cage. Like, he's like, fuck this, I'm out.
Yeah, well, this was kind of a retirement fight for either one of them, so I could honestly see it being Nate's swan song. He may not want to put up with this after that.
I think you give him one more fight stateside to have him wrap up, his hometown or his home state, perhaps.
Maybe, but I don't know.
Make it a fight night. Make it him the main event. Give him the proper send-off that he deserves.
I'm not disagreeing with you. I just don't know if it's worth it for him to put in a full training camp for what might not be a robust payday.
They did it for Pickett.
I know they did, but Pickett was a very long respected fighter in his weight class and was fighting in his home country and really got the crowd to come out and support him for that fight. So it's a little bit different. I don't know if Nate's going to be able to pull that off. I don't know if he's like the pride of England the way Pickett was.
Fair enough. Let's talk about the middleweight fight between Paulo and Oluwal.
Borhinha and Bangabos.
There you go. Paulo won this fight in the second round at 106.
He was not getting paid by the hour either.
No, he surprised me a little bit here. I want to see him a couple more fights. I want to see him on a card sooner rather than later.
Yeah, I think based on this performance, you would have to consider him a middleweight prospect at this point. Mm-hmm. Undefeated. He's got 9 knockouts, 1 submission, 10-0. Just won a fight on pay-per-view. How do you not look at him as a potential top 15 guy going forward?
He's on the bubble. I think in the next fight, he needs to fight someone in the top or the bottom, 13, 14, 15. Have him crack the top 15 with a win.
I think he's right there. I can't disagree with you at all. And I wonder if you feel the same way about Yancy Medeiros, because remember what I said about how Hawaiians were really getting to represent on this card between Holloway and Medeiros? Mm-hmm. Well, you had that here in this welterweight fight with him finishing Silva in 2 minutes and 1 second of the second round.
Did Silva look slow to you in this fight?
A little bit. Just a tad bit. Medeiros was definitely quicker on the draw.
But this wasn't the Eric Silva I'm used to.
Either that or just Medeiros got a lot better and you weren't paying attention while he did.
Maybe. I mean, I was focusing on Silva. I had no horse in the race, so to speak, but I expected a little bit more from Silva. I'm not sure if it was a bad training camp, maybe bad food. Something was not the Eric Silva I'm used to seeing in a fight. And Medeiros, you can't, pin that on him. Medeiros fought a great fight, and this is a fight that will definitely bolster his stock in the company.
I think so too. In fact, if you look back, the last fight he lost was in Brazil, and even in losing, he had the fight of the night. So when you look at it that way, that's the kind of fight where even in losing, you don't really lose. So I'd say with 3 wins out of his last 4, his stock is definitely on the rise.
Now, is anything on the prelim card catches your eye? Because I have a few notes on this as well.
Well, we have to start with Assunção and Moraes because even Dave Meltzer said that was a bad call. I scored the fight for Moraes.
I have no problem with 29-28 for either fighter.
Mm-hmm.
It was that close. Whoever scored it 30-27, give me your judging credentials. give me your card. I'm going to tear it up. Oh, it's laminated? Get me some scissors.
Oh, one of the reporters that I'm friends with on Twitter said the judges got it right, and I immediately replied, and I said to him, how? They all scored a different fight based on their scorecards. Pick any scorecard you like, and one judge had your call. Of course they got it right, because they all had something different.
The last time I saw a scorecard this wonky when it was Fighter A, 30-27, Fighter B, 27-30, and Fighter C, 29-28 for your winner by split decision. It's like, what fight are you watching?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how you score all 3 rounds for Assunção. And I like both of these fighters.
There's no way to score all 3 rounds for Assunção, especially when you look at the fact that the only reason Assunção won one of those rounds was because he tagged Moraes with like 2 seconds left to go and hurt him. Like every other second of that round, Moraes had been outworking him and outstriking him, and then very late in the round, Assunção froze him in his tracks. Like, I could see why a judge might have flipped their 10-9, but for the other 4 minutes and 55 seconds, Moraes won that round, so I wouldn't have flipped it.
No, I wouldn't have flipped it either. There was a fight on the Fight Pass. Vivian Pereira beating Jamie Moyle. Unanimous decision, 29-28, 30-27, and the other judge had it 30-27. Vivian Pereira, I want to just point this out to you, Stevie, and this is in my, but I might as well mention it now. She had pink eye a couple of weeks before the fight.
Wow, and still took the fight.
And she wins by unanimous decision.
That's hard.
Usually, if you have pink eye, you ain't, fighting. You take a week off, you get that crap taken care of, and then you come back and you lose a week of training camp, or you lose a couple of days at least, and she came back and won the fight unanimously.
Honestly, I don't even think that's the biggest story out of these prelims. I think the bigger story is that we had 2 upsets in the bantamweight division against ranked fighters, because we had 2 Americans come in and beat 2 Brazilians that were in the top 15. We had Matt Lopez knocking out Johnny Eduardo by TKO in 2 minutes and 57 seconds, but not to be outdone, Brian Kelleher guillotine choked Yuri Alcantara in a minute and 48 seconds. You cannot even conceive of how monumental that upset is if you don't follow this sport, because Kelleher came straight out of nowhere, like a 17-7 record, and Alcantara is a beast on the ground.
Yeah, did you hear what happened with Kellner after the fight?
What, did they offer him some kind of bonus? Or
No. Well, what happened was when he left the cage, fans started throwing beer cans at him.
I'm sure they did, because nobody in that arena, they were feeling the same way Jose Aldo was after the referee stopped the fight. Like, what the fuck? Yuri Alcantara just lost at home? That didn't happen.
Yeah, and, Eduardo, I hate saying this because I don't want to put him in this category, but I'm going to have to. Is he now a hit-and-miss fighter?
Well, you might wonder, because in his last 6 fights, he's 3-3, so there's starting to be some holes in his game, because first it was the decision loss to Assunção, then he got choked out by Sterling, and now he got TKO'd by a previously little-known fighter. I'd say there's definitely some holes in Eduardo's game, and people are figuring them out.
I think it's attributing to Kellner's fight camp.
Yeah,
they were able to do something.
You really got to give Brian Kelleher credit for putting himself on the map in hostile territory. You got to give it to both of these guys. I mean, they, on a card where you wouldn't expect much movement in any one division, these 2 guys completely shook up the bottom third of the bantamweight division. That ranking set is going to be completely different when it comes out this week.
Well, I'm looking forward to the next time they go to Brazil. Hopefully they improve their security next time.
Yeah, don't let fans chuck beer at the octagon or any of the fighters. That's not acceptable anywhere.
All right, so let's move on to the news of the week. And we mentioned it off the top. UFC has added Kazushi Sakuraba to the 2017 UFC Hall of Fame. And for those who are fans of the Wrestling Observer, Sakuraba is now the first member to be in both the Wrestling Observer Hall of Fame and the UFC Hall of Fame.
And very deservedly so. I'm not even sure there would be enough time if we devoted this entire podcast to discussing his accomplishments. But I think if we wanted to hit on a few of the career highlights in general, he was a national champion, runner-up in high school as a wrestler. He was All Japan Collegiate Wrestling Champion, 4th place. And then he went on to Pride Fighting after already being a decorated wrestler in high school, and was the 2000 Pride Open Grand Prix semifinalist. He had the longest fight in Pride history.
Oh, God.
That's saying something. He went 90 fucking minutes. It was ridiculous. And then he had just an amazing career in general with, I can't even begin to list everything else. Like I said, it'd dig up this whole show.
Mm-hmm.
But he was the first man to beat Hoist Gracie. So I think that says it all.
After 90 minutes, though, like, his brother was cage side and wanted to throw in the towel a couple of times, and his other brother was like, no, he'll win this. It's like, no, he won't.
Mm-hmm.
Like, Sakuraba that day was the better fighter, but I don't see UFC fighters nowadays fighting for 90 minutes.
No. And he earned the nickname Gracie Killer because he basically went on a tear where anybody with the last name Gracie didn't have a chance against him. Hoyler Gracie? Nope. Hoist Gracie? Nope. Henzo Gracie? Nope. Hyen Gracie? Nope. Just one after another. He just mowed down every single Gracie that came against him.
I forgot about that last one.
Yeah, and here's another thing that you should consider.
Mm-hmm.
He was outweighed by like maybe 40, 50 pounds and still beat Quentin Rampage Jackson by rear naked choke.
That's saying something.
Yeah,
because back then he didn't tap for anyone.
You got to go back and watch some of these old fights that he had, because you may not know it if you're a recent UFC fan, but some of the things that Sakuraba did were fucking incredible. And we're just talking MMA here. This guy was also a legend of New Japan Professional Wrestling and one of the greatest pro wrestlers ever in the history of that organization. So you really got to study up on Sakuraba. There's a whole lot out there for him.
That's when I saw my first New Japan DVD, or Blu-ray, I should say, was one of the Wrestle Kingdoms where he fought Shinsuke Nakamura. And that match was pretty fucking good.
Oh, yeah. Nakamura, fucking beast in the ring, and Sakuraba, the old lion, was not just going to roll over for him, so they went out there and had a hell of a match. It was almost more of a fight than a wrestling match.
I think I told you this off air, but when I watched that wrestling show on Blu-ray, the man who came out with the belt to present it was Stan the Man Hansen.
That's very appropriate.
Oh yeah, he's a legend in Japan, just like Sakuraba is.
Mm-hmm. And just as tough as either of those men, so.
Absolutely. But let's move on to some more news. And some people are saying, is this the end for Vitor Belfort? He thinks this quote-unquote win will get him a new deal.
No. It was a close one. He didn't really convince me of anything. I don't think he should continue, but I've been on the record as saying he shouldn't anyway, so I'd say the fight didn't change the opinion I already had.
Now, when it comes to Max Holloway, does he fight Edgar? Does he fight Swanson? Or a rematch with Jose Aldo?
I think you have to rule out the Jose rematch because he needs to establish himself as the new top dog in the division, and an immediate rematch when Jose Aldo got clearly and decisively finished doesn't do either of them any favors. Jose Aldo should have to earn his way back to it, and Max Holloway should get the grace of being champion winning by TKO in that he gets to face new people.
I think he gets Cub Swanson.
I can actually see an argument for that.
Yeah, I think Swanson's my pick for that one.
You would actually pick Swanson over Holloway?
What?
Is that what you're saying?
Holloway's the champ.
Yeah, are you saying you're picking Swanson over Holloway if they fight?
Oh, if they fight.
Because I sure wouldn't.
You know, if Swanson had a full fight camp and he was healthy, I don't know. It'd be too close to call.
I think it would go the distance, but I think Holloway would win.
It'd be a good fight.
See, I would feel the same way about Lamas or Edgar for that matter. I feel like...
Oh, I didn't even think about Lamas. Yeah, there's another name.
I think either one of them could go the distance with Holloway, but I think Holloway would still win in the end.
Yeah, but when that door closes and they say fight, anything can happen.
Mm-hmm. But right now, you have to admit, just watching the way he fought Jose Aldo, you can't say, other than if Conor came back to featherweight, which he ain't gonna do, you would say that right now he is the best featherweight in the world.
Right now, yes, he is. Now, let's talk about another champion, Demetrius Johnson.
This is a mess.
No, this is a bloody mess.
This is a bloody awful mess. This is ridiculous.
So, the short version of this story is everybody's been talking about how, you know, they're pressuring, I guess you could say, DJ to fight TJ Dillashaw, even though Dillashaw hasn't earned a title shot, and he'd be going down a weight class to fight him.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the representatives for the UFC basically, how would he say it? That smaller guys don't draw, and that if he doesn't take this fight...
They basically threatened to blank out the entire flyweight division.
I've never heard someone say that. Like, I've never heard entertain the possibility of just folding a weight class like that.
Well, there might be one other weight class you should do that with in UFC, and that would be the women's featherweight division, because the champion ain't even defending the title, and there ain't even enough fighters to rank, so I'd close that one before I'd close the flyweights, because at least you got a full-fledged roster of flyweights that are fighting.
If only Bellator had a flyweight division.
Yeah, if only, huh?
They
do for the women.
I wonder if this story will change in a week or two.
Well, it keeps changing by the minute because the story keeps changing. It's like, oh, we're going to have him move up to 135. Oh, no, we're just going to eliminate the flyweight division. Oh, no, he's going to fight Ray Borg. It's like, come on, just make up your damn minds already. Quit screwing with this guy. You know what? He should be accorded the respect that Anderson Silva was when he went undefeated for like 7 years and was the most dominant champion in MMA history. You should be giving Demetrius Johnson that kind of respect.
Do you think him going public with this is a smart move for DJ, or do you think he hurt his cause, so to speak, by going public?
At this point, I don't think anything he can do that gets his name in the mainstream media is a bad thing for DJ, because you're right, when UFC says that flyweights don't draw, that's been a problem before. That's been a problem with him on top on pay-per-views. That's been a problem with UFC on Fox shows. He needs to get out there and state his case to the public that I'm a dominant champion, I'm a great fighter, I deserve respect, and I'm not getting it. He needs to have his name out there in the papers, putting UFC on the spotlight and saying they ain't treating me right.
Well, from going from two fighters, if TJ and DJ fight, it'll definitely be a war, to let's transition to War Machine.
Well, he's only having wars in prison for the next 36 years.
They won't be on pay-per-view.
No, they'll be in the lunchroom.
Ouch.
Or in the yard.
Yeah, War Machine has been convicted of a slew of charges from his assaulting his former girlfriend,
Christy Mack,
and he will be in jail without the possibility of parole for 36 years.
I believe he was convicted on 28 of 29 charges and one was thrown out.
Unbelievable.
Yeah, well, if you saw the pictures of her after the beating, they
Yeah.
were unbelievable. So there's little doubt this guy is getting exactly what he deserved from the criminal justice system.
But I'm glad to see that this story is now at an end, and we will not have to discuss this case anymore. It's sickening to talk about, really, and I'm just glad it's over.
To be honest, I don't even think we should do him the courtesy of calling him War Machine anymore. This is John Copenhaver we're talking about. This is a man who will not be called War Machine in prison. He will be 0582174 whatever. You know, he'll have a number and his legal birth name, and that's it. War Machine belongs to a tag team that holds titles in New Japan, not this guy.
There you go. A little bit of a fight announcements here to talk about, and then we'll talk about the Mauler in just a second. But 2 notes for UFC. Let's start with UFC 214. It was supposed to be Korean Zombie against Ricardo Lamas. We just talked about Lamas a second ago. That fight was supposed to be really good. Zombie's out, and he's been replaced by Jason Knight.
So what's holding up Zombie here? Is it an injury?
It's an injury.
What's the injury? Has it been disclosed?
I didn't see it on my sheet, but I'm sure we'll hear about it next week.
All right, then.
And 215, now I'm using the air quotes for this one because they haven't announced the venue yet, and they haven't announced what the show will be as far as will it be a fight night, or they don't. Tentatively, it's 215 right now.
Uh-huh.
Sometime in August, and they're targeting Seattle.
All right.
But they've penciled in Anthony Smith to fight Hector Lombard.
Okay, well, that's a fight. That's an interesting possibility. And if they put some other fights on that and make a pay-per-view out of it, then we'll have more to talk about.
Absolutely. And Alexander Gustafsson, I have one more news item after this, but Alexander Gustafsson went onto Twitter and social media and basically talked trash about John Jones. You know, the whole PEDs, cocaine weekend, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
Well, the same things he basically said after he beat Glover Teixeira is that he doesn't consider John Jones a real champion because he doesn't act like one.
If only John Jones would not comment, huh?
John Jones can't help himself. He's got a big mouth and he ain't afraid to use it.
What did John Jones say now?
He said a whole bunch of things, but basically he told Gustafsson to go fuck himself because he wasn't even worth his time.
Please, please, please let Gustafsson have a front row seat for the Cormier-Jones fight.
Yeah, he deserves the winner of that fight no matter who it is. He really has earned the right to be next. Yeah,
so another item just hit the wire here. Alan Jabouin is out of his fight at UFC 213. He was supposed to fight Brian Camozzi. He fractured his foot, Stevie. That's going to be not exactly a short-term injury there.
No, that'll immobilize him for a while. That'll probably be 3 months to heal and then another 3 months to rehab. He'll be out for a while.
And for those looking for a Conor McGregor Money Mayweather update, there is none.
I keep telling you that fight's never going to happen. I hope you'll believe me at some point.
Well, Dana White, the only thing he said this week was he thinks a 50-50 split with the proceeds, half to Mayweather, half to McGregor, is more than fair, and Mayweather's probably laughing, counting his $100 bills right now.
Yeah, Mayweather ain't going to agree to that. You know damn well he ain't agreeing to no 50-50 split.
It's a very tempting fight, and I talked about this, was it last week, saying from Bob Abrams that if Mayweather doesn't want to fight McGregor, then Pacquiao will take it. I'm like, no, don't take the Pacquiao replacement. You want Mayweather or nothing.
Yeah, and honestly, Pacquiao's not even going to be that much of a draw at this point. They already had the biggest fight he could have with Mayweather and didn't win that, so I don't see Pacquiao as being viable as a big draw in boxing or in a mixed fight anymore.
All right, so let's move on to UFC Fight Night 110 main event, Derek Lewis against Mark Hunt.
Mm-hmm.
Sponsored by Harvey's.
There's somebody going to fall down and go boom in this fight is pretty much my opinion on that.
You're going to have to reinforce the cage.
Yeah, get some extra steel girders and put them underneath the octagon because it's going to be a lot of man meat in there.
Yeah, there's not exactly 2 flyweights in there, that's for sure.
No. Oh, wow. It's kind of weird that Mark Hunt is actually taking a fight at the same time he's suing the organization he's fighting in, but that's what we got here.
Yeah, and as far as the prediction for this one, it's hard to pick against Hunt in Down Under. I got to stick with Hunt in this one.
Well, I understand the reasoning because, yeah, he is a fighter from that part of the world, from Australia and New Zealand, and he tends to have his best performances when he's fighting close to home where he's comfortable. So you would think that a guy from South Auckland fighting in Auckland would do well. I can't dispute you on saying that. And at the same time, I feel like Derek Lewis is a guy that's, his stock has been on the rise, and Hunt's stock is kind of treading water right now. And the biggest thing he's got going for him is that he lost a fight that arguably he shouldn't have because Brock Lesnar tested positive for a million things. So, I mean, the line is close, though. Lewis is minus 120. Hunt is plus 100. I'm tending to favor Lewis, and I'll tell you why. It's not that I don't like the Hunt mythos and the fact that he's fighting at home, and that's really good for him. But the one chink in Derek Lewis's armor has been if you can get to his legs and put him on his back. And Hunt is not that kind of fighter in the most part. He tends to be a stand-up brawler. And if you stand and brawl with Derek Lewis, you're probably going lights out. Even Mark Hunt, as tough as he is, even Mark Hunt.
All right, what about Derek Brunson and Dan Kelly?
Well, Kelly is the plus 225 dog. Brunson, the minus 265 favorite. That seems about right to me. What do you say, Peter?
You know, I'm going to go with Brunson on this one. I'm not saying he needs the win, but if Dan Kelly beats him, I'm not sure what you do with him.
Well, arguably, Anderson Silva got a gift when the two of them fought.
Yeah.
So I don't feel like that should be counted against Brunson. And Robert Whittaker was one of those fights where you say everybody gets caught, and Brunson just got caught by a perfect kick to the head. So, yeah, I feel like Brunson has the bigger upside. Dan Kelly's thing is that he's got 4 wins in a row, and he's super tough. But the fact that he couldn't just completely demolish Rashad Evans makes me think that Derek Brunson might actually have something on him here, because at this point in Rashad's career, I would have picked Dan Kelly to just go straight through him, and it went to a split decision.
Yeah, I mean, as I said, he doesn't need to win this fight. Brunson doesn't really need to win it to save his job, but, you know, as I said, the Rashad Evans, I mean, that didn't make Dan Kelly look very good, so.
No, yeah. Dan Kelly needs this win far more than Derek Brunson does.
Now, what about Dan Hooker against Ross Pearson?
Well, according to the odds, Hooker is minus 205, Pearson is plus 165, and once again, I got no reason to disagree with that line. What about you?
I actually have Hooker winning this fight. I think Pearson is done as a fighter.
Yeah.
I think this is his swan song.
I think so too, and the only reason you might have a little pause to consider that is because in his last 6 fights, Dan Hooker has a 500 record, but then you look at Ross Pearson's record over his last 6 fights, and he's 2-4. So I think Hooker has got a lot more career longevity ahead of him compared to Pearson.
And try it again. Kudaleva against De Silva.
Yes. The line on this one has Kudaleva minus 205 and De Silva at plus 165. Once again, I feel like the odds makers are pretty much on track with that one.
I'm actually tempted to pick De Silva on this one.
I am not feeling De Silva after 2 straight losses to Paul Craig and Jordan Johnson. I feel like he might have peaked with the Joaquin Christensen fight, and now he's finding out the competition above that is too tough for him.
I don't know. I think this could be the Well, we already cursed a couple of times already in this show. Either shit or get off the pot fight for De Silva.
Mm-hmm. Well, Kudaleba, he definitely needs to shit or get off the pot because he's 500 in his last 4 fights. So he really needs to get on a roll here if he ever wants to get anywhere in the light heavyweight division.
All right. Ben Nguyen against Tim Elliott in the flyweight division.
Even before I look at the odds, I've got Tim Elliott. But
yeah, no, that's slam dunk, yeah.
Yeah, and the odds confirm I'm right to say that because he's minus 225 and win is plus 175.
Volkanovski against Hirota.
The odds on this one have it minus 275 for Volkanovski and plus 215 for Hirota. But I want to think about that one a little bit more because there's a little more going on here with Hirota having won, well, he hasn't lost in 5 fights. He had 1 fight that went to a draw. The rest were, TKOs and decisions. I feel like Hirota might be just a little bit underneath the radar right now. Whereas Volkanovski has had exactly 1 fight in UFC that he won in 2 minutes and 6 seconds. So he's either as good as people think he is, or he's gotten to the upper level and beat a guy that wasn't on his level, but now he's actually getting a guy that might be on his level. So it's hard to say that he just blows through Hirota here. I think that's not necessarily the case.
Sorry, I'm just laughing because I know I wanted to make a joke about him not being on the Neville level. Sorry, the joke was wide open. I had to go there.
Yeah, you need a heavyweight to hold your mind down. Break orbit.
Yeah. I'm gonna go with Volkanovski here. I'm not believing in Hirota yet. I think a win here would definitely change my mind for his next fight. I don't know. I have Volkanovski win this fight. I mean, it's not something I'm very confident in, but it's something where if I fought these guys 10 times, Hirota's winning 3 or 4, but that's out of 10 fights.
Fair enough. And on the preliminary portion, we've got some interesting bouts at lightweight, flyweight, welterweight, women's strawweight bout, and a lightweight bout. So which one of those do you want to talk about?
Well, I'm looking at Ashkan Mokhtarian against John Morega in the flyweight division. I like Morega.
Yeah, and again, I'm going to predict he's the favorite before I even look at the odds. And as it turns out, Moraga is minus 160. Mokhtarian is plus 130. A little closer than I would have expected.
And the other fight I'm looking forward to on the prelims is Kichi Kunimoto against Zakatao. And I've got Kunimoto on that one.
Kunimoto is plus 240, so odds makers say you're wrong.
Well, that could be my upset pick of the night.
All right, well, I'll make Hirota my upset pick, and you can go with Kunimoto, but I'd say don't sleep on the strawweight fight with J.J. Aldrich and Chanmin Jeon. I think Aldrich could go out there and show that she was better than she performed with Juliana Lima. I think this could be her rebound fight, and she could look pretty good in this one.
And that's the only women's fight on this card.
That's right.
Usually we see 2 or, 1 or 2, not just 1, but
well, we had a card a few weeks ago that didn't have any.
It's true. It's true. But then I think back to the time when we were told that there would be women's fighting in UFC, so.
I know, you always make that point.
It's true. I mean,
yeah,
for
I know
those
it's
who
true.
are new, for those who are new to the sport, and we were talking about Sakuraba before, check out Fight Pass. There's some great Pride fights. That Quentin Jackson fight, I'm actually go back and check it out this week because it was that good.
Yeah. And go back and look at a time when women were only fighting in Japan. That's something
There's some good fights there too.
Absolutely.
Now, Stevie, what's on tap for Thursday Night AMP this week?
We've got New Japan's Dominion card coming up this weekend and a Road to Dominion card that will precede it on Friday morning. So there's going to be some heavy New Japan discussion, but there was also an Extreme Rules card this past Sunday, so we'll talk about that too.
And, just one quick question. What did you think of that kendo stick on a pole match?
Dumb.
Oh, geez, tell me how you really feel.
Complete waste of my time, complete waste of Bailey's time, and a complete waste of time for everybody who went to the event.
But, I mean, there were a couple of good matches on that card overall, and I really enjoyed the 5-way match main event.
Aries and Neville was okay. The 5-way at the end was decent to slightly above average. All in all, a very unimportant show.
No, I mean, the main event was the reason you were tuning in. The rest of the matches were there. The Aries-Neville match definitely was better than I expected, but yeah, for the most part, it was a ho-hum show.
Yeah, it was basically designed to get titles off of a couple of people. We had Miz going over Ambrose, and we had Cesaro and Sheamus going over the Hardys, but neither one of those was anything to write home about.
No, I think you'll get a better show on Dominion.
Yes. Oh, yes.
All right, Stevie, any other plugs you want to throw up this week?
MMA Mania for all the things that I cover with Bellator and the Professional Fighting League and anything else they assign me to do.